everybody. I'm Dr. Venus, your hot mess millionaire. And I am excited to share with you today, okay? This is God. I claim nothing, okay? I claim absolutely nothing. A couple of days ago, after the DC riots, insurrection, I can't even say all the words, right? Happened, I did a post for my white allies, right? People who love me, who happen to not be Black. And I was just saying how I felt about some shit, right? And it had over 50 million views. No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. 500,000 views, okay? And I received a lot of hate mail from a lot of right-winged white people. There was just hate. Now, I would like to think I'm cool. You know, I would like to think that I have something of worth and value to say, but I could be wrong. But that being said, I received a number of invitations to, to have a conversation about it, right? To have a conversation. And most of them were mean-spirited and they called me everything but a child of God. But then I got this beautiful message twice from this dude named Joseph, right? And he was like, look, you sound rational. That was what got my attention. He said, I sound rational, and he liked my jokes. So I responded to him. It's true, Joseph's great. I responded to him, and he and I started to exchange, and he had the most beautiful heart, and he's rigorous. So he's not how can I say this, God? He's not full of shit. Okay, he really has a whole perspective around things that points to how there's a bigger fight, there's a bigger context in place that has us at odds when we're really more in alignment than what the media or what politicians are letting us know, right? So he and I we got into conversation. I had a girl crush on him. I'm like, okay, he has 6 babies, I think 6 or 50, 11 of them, couldn't tell you. He has a bunch of kids. And he's so not like me, except that he resonates with me. So I figured if he resonates with me, he'll resonate with my tribe. Okay, so Joseph and I are going to have a dignified conversation. The operative word here is dignified. All right, so this is not haters going to hate. This is not whitey down with whitey or fuck Black people. We're not doing that. That's not this. Okay, this is really God expanding me, helping me grow, and helping me be like, okay, Lord, help me understand what the fuck you want me to do with this. And so he sent me Joseph. And so we're going to have a conversation. And the way the conversation is designed is to model a dignified conversation with somebody who may not agree with you. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk. I'm going to say whatever I say. He's going to listen. He's going to say whatever he says. I'm going to listen. We don't get to cross-talk. We don't get to call each other names. We don't get to be ugly about it. And we stay in the conversation we're having. We're not going to add in fire and put gasoline on it. We're going to have a committed, dignified conversation about race and social change. And be clear, we literally are on different sides of the field. I really am kind of leftist with my hair, and he's kind of rightist with his bald head. So you just want to take it with a grain of salt. And remember this, we're all children of God, we're all human, and we all have a right to our truth. So on my platform, you have the space to speak your truth, but you gotta speak it in love, okay? So we'll go through the comments, and once he and I do our thing, we're gonna talk about 30 minutes-ish. And if we feel like the love is present, we will open the line for a few questions or comments, okay? So, and please feel free to tag, share, do what you gotta do. Please do, again, do it in love. And you should just know a couple of things about me. I curse, I cry, and I pray sometimes in the same sentence, okay? So if you're easily offended, you should leave now because I'm about to say some bullshit, okay? I'm passionate about what I believe, and I want to hear you, okay? So if you are easily offended, I'm so not your teacher, okay? And I just want to make sure I put that in because when I get hot, I get hot. I don't get reasonable hot. I get fucking furious hot. But that just means I'm passionate, doesn't mean I'm angry. And I think that's worth saying. So with that being said, Mr. Joseph, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I'm so honored and I'm so appreciative that you did it twice. And I would like for you to take a few minutes just to introduce yourself the way you want to be known on this platform, because I'm recording it and I'm probably going to circulate the shit out of it. Okay. So you just say how you want to be known. I already told you got 11 babies. And also, why did you reach out to me? Okay. Because so for me to manage my damn self, I'm muting me because I know I get a little mouthy. So you go, your turn.
All right. So all my life, I've been known as Joey J. And Joey J was a chameleon. So I didn't stick with one crew. I hung with everybody. I talked to everybody. I got to understand different cultures, how people think, how they operate, where they come from. Mm-hmm. In that, there's a lot of difference, but I never found the kind of animosity that I'm seeing out there right now. Mm-hmm. And what I don't see is the same thing in my everyday life. I walk out, go to Wawa. Y'all don't have Wawa, but if you knew what a Wawa was, you would know. You go to Wawa, and the races aren't about to brawl each other in the parking lot, but online, and you depersonalize it, and all of a sudden, people are saying some shit, mm-hmm. and everybody's yelling and nobody's listening. Everybody's yelling, nobody's talking either, but that's beside the point. Nobody's really listening. So I heard your video. Honestly, my first instinct was to get mad or defensive or something like that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, she's just speaking her world the same way I would speak mine. One thing I didn't pick up in your tone or anything else, so there was a blind hatred or that there was anything more than just frustration at what we got going on in the world today. Right. I think that the powers to be, let's call them, have more of a vested interest in us not talking, in us not communicating effectively, and putting these make-believe walls up between us, because then they cease to have the same kind of power. Mm-hmm. Right? So when I reached out, I was like, man, I didn't think for a second in hell you would respond. I didn't know who you were, honestly. I had no idea. This thing came across my feed. And I don't even know how it got in my feed in the first place. If you were to see my social media presence, you would think I'm on the left. Those are the people I follow. That's who I listen to. Obviously, I got people on the right too. But one of the biggest problems we have is everybody living in this echo chamber that they want to be in. And social media, by design to some degree, puts people in that because they don't. It was supposed to be about an experience, right? You were supposed to have this pleasurable experience being on these social media platforms. I doubt that when they conceptualized Twitter and Facebook, they thought it would turn into the town square. I don't think they ever foresaw that. I think Facebook was keep in touch with people after college and it'll be cool or whatever else in high school, and staying in touch. And then Twitter, I don't even know why Twitter's around, but Twitter is how do you get the shortest amount of words to get your point across? And a lot is missed in that translation. Mm-hmm. So plus you have the anonymity of people have said some of the craziest stuff I've watched to other people. It's like, would you really say that to them if they're standing in front of you? I doubt it. I had somebody, another white dude, forget race, another white dude who told me to off myself. I forget what I said, but it had something to do. It was nothing. It wasn't a serious guy. It was something like, I remember what I said. I said, maybe people have it wrong about President Trump. And maybe a lot of the noise, once you parse it back and you start looking at the actions over the words, maybe he was trying to help people. I personally believe that from the time he started his presidency till the end of it, I think there's something that changed. I think he saw what the inner workings of our government were, and he saw the people, and he said, wait a minute, you guys aren't working for them, you're working for yourselves. And then it was some egotistical thing where he had to prove everybody in the government wrong. Now, look, I can deal with that as far as somebody in the government standing up for the little guy, because I, for one, haven't seen it too often. They stand up for causes to get votes, in my opinion. But when it comes to actual, true change, things that people actually need and want and that will improve their everyday existence. I didn't really see that.
Okay.
The fact that at this point, and hey, look, I voted for President Obama. All right, so I think that over the last 12 years or so, that the voice that says I'm going to change things are the ones that gotten elected so far. But except this most recent one, I don't know. But like the change, everybody is voting for change because they're discontented with something in their life. But the more, I think sometime in 2010 maybe, Trayvon, I think, was a big dividing point because then people had to take a side, apparently. Never mind that I don't know what his heritage was, but I don't think George Zimmerman was a white guy. I'm pretty sure he is of Latino descent, but it turned into a black and white. Now, I'll tell you, at the time, I was living in, everybody I lived with was black. During that time, and I watched things change, not for the good. And people started to be like, well, we won, or, we lost. And it's like, well, who lost what? What do you mean you won? Like some case, nobody won in that case, right? But people started going to a corner. And then as things got further and further, we got away from what the actual crux of the problems are and more into you have to defend your side. Because it can't possibly be that you're Democrat, I'm Republican, newly Republican, actually. I used to be registered Democrat up until I think 2012, matter of fact. Excuse me. But you had to pick a side, you had to defend it. Because if you weren't, then you weren't on anybody's side, you're a lone wolf. And nobody liked those lone wolves because it's like, oh, well, you're taking away from my vote or you're taking away from this person's vote. It was all insane. So, but coming back to my original point, in all of those, everybody going into their corners, I didn't see it in my everyday life. Okay. I saw, a lot of the people I work with are black, and black, white, Hispanic. It doesn't matter. I work in sales, but we have a labor force, and it's a hotbed of mixing of all nationalities. Before that, I was in the restaurant business, and you already know that's, it's like the United Nations in a kitchen. So I didn't see what I saw people doing or people saying online. And the further and further we got, the more insulated people got, because then it turned into, well, I don't like what you're saying, so I'm just going to block you. I don't have to listen to it anymore. And those conversations turned into shutting down the conversation. Where we once used to have it, it just stopped happening. And then people would pop up every once in a while when there was a sensationalized coverage of something, and they would start yelling on Facebook, and everybody's yelling, and just look at this stuff, and the constant barrage of just media sensationalizing of everything to make you emotional, pull at your strings. Didn't do anybody any good, and it turned people away from talking. So when I saw you, I'm like, you know what? That'd be a good conversation. Well, so here we are.
Well, thank you. No, Joe, I think that it is a good conversation, and I appreciate you articulating how we got here from your side of the aisle, right? I'm going to go back to a couple of points just so we can start threading a bit. You're starting from Trayvon Martin. That's where your timeline is starting in terms of the ugliness of how we relate to each other on social. Is that what I'm just trying to track?
No,
is that what you're mentioning?
No, not really. But me, when I started seeing it.
Okay. So
when I started seeing the corner, people splitting off.
Okay. So let's just look at that. So what we're looking at is two things. One is we're looking at, when do we have to pick our sides? based on what you're saying, like we didn't pick sides before, based on where you're looking from, right? And now we're in our trenches and we're boxing with whomever who's not on our side. It's literally like a boxing match. You go to your corner, I go to my corner. You know, I'm wearing blue shorts, you're wearing red shorts, and we're boxing. Not literally, because I'm rocking the red today, right? So
that was my mistake, huh?
No, like maybe you got some blue on, I don't know, right? But so we got a boxing match happening around an idea, okay? And the idea has everything to do with unjust. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah.
I want to get us on
a fair.
Fair.
Unjust or fair in the same. Yep.
Okay, we'll take it. Unfair. I'll take it. Works for me. Okay. So we had this whole fight around that wasn't fair what happened to Trayvon Martin. Okay. And you're right. It did. Now the guy, Zimmerman, doesn't look white. He looks a beige color, right? But the positioning, which is what I want to put out for everybody, so we all on the same page. And I need y'all to hear this, okay? When people say black and white, they're not talking about skin color. And I know it looks like that. They're talking about social positions, okay? A social position is how you are viewed and related to in public spaces, all right? So for example, my body is a black female body, all right? So historically, people related to it as a slave, a mammy, a secretary. It has a whole history, whereas a white male body is related to as power, as just, I'm sorry, a white, rich male body. Let me fix that. Because if you're poor white, no, I know, I saw you coming, Joseph. He said, hold on, fix it quick. I saw you coming for me. I got my eye on you, dude, right? But if you're a rich white male, you were endowed just by virtue of your skin and your gender with power, authority, and privilege, all right? So when Trayvon got dead, and the young man, Zimmerman, used all of the tropes of whiteness, meaning the political structures in place to justify slaying a black person that are historical since slavery and Reconstruction. That is a different conversation if you don't have it. If you are on the side of, well, let's just talk about militia, but you're not on the side of, okay, they killed us because they could. We're literally already in two corners. It's just now visible. Does it make sense, Joseph?
Yeah, I would only minorly disagree that during the 70s, now this predates me, and I'll tell you now, I'm 36. So really, we're talking about paying, when people start paying attention, or when the world starts getting real for people at various times. And that's different with everybody, and it changes on circumstance, where you come from, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like there was a period of harmony. Let me back this up way, way, way further.
Okay.
After the slaves were freed in Reconstruction, there was the original Civil Rights Act that most people don't even know about.
Okay.
And that Civil Rights Act was actually a Republican legislation. Most people would be floored to know that it was actually the Democratic Party that not only had slaves, fought for slaves. The Civil War being North versus South is kind of a farce. Actually, not kind of a farce. It was a farce. Really, it was a battle between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats holding on to slavery, and then reinvigorating that into the early 1900s and into the 20s. And now you got Jim Crow. Right. And then the Klan was basically the militant arm of the Democratic Party. Right? Most people have no idea about that. And then there's, we could debate the big switch and all that kind of stuff. I personally, I've looked into this extensively, and I haven't found any racist Democrats that went to the Republican Party. There were certainly Democrats that switched over to the Republican Party, but not racist Democrats. So, this idea that there was this big switch and everybody just maneuvered around, I'm not seeing the basis for it. But again, a little off topic here, when we start to talk about, let's say, the 1880s into 1900, 1910, there was harmony, there was integration in a lot of levels, and it wasn't until segregation, which broke it back apart again. So there were these periods where, if you start looking backwards, you don't hear about that. You hear about slavery, 1920, 1960, today, right? Okay. But there were these, the original Civil Rights Act. Most people don't know that the 1960s Civil Rights Act was only allowed to happen because it stopped being filibustered. And that went on for decades, I believe. But there were these periods where people were coming together in harmony. And I think that is every time that seemed to happen, there was a big breakup. And, it's like, whoa, we can't let this happen. I believe you made this point at one point where it was like, poor white people and poor black people getting together. And people realized, whoa, we can't have that. They have a voice. And so I just would say that I think prior to, 2000s or whatever time period we're talking, 1980s, whatever it is, forward, I think there were these other times of harmony that aren't talked about, and the reason why they became disharmonious are also not talked about.
I think you're right, Joe. I think you're absolutely spot on. I think you're very accurate. Even, literally, if you go back to history and you look at after emancipation, after slavery after Abraham freed the slaves, all right? And we know that was a political move to have to handicap the South because they had a stronghold on the economics. So if you have the North take away the right to have slaves, you are literally handicapping the South in terms of their manpower. So that was all political. And I'm in a complete alignment with you. And after emancipation, you are absolutely correct. There were moments, there were silos and pockets of quiet. I don't know about harmony, but I would call it quiet because you have Black people who are now, and it's not everybody, so y'all read your history. Don't take our word for it. Go look it the fuck up, all right? There are different times when Black people started to get political power. And literally when you had poor working class whites and you had free Blacks start working together, that's when rich white land-owning men said, oh, hell no. And they started some shit up. Okay, and that included rumors about Black men raping white women. That included picking fights, setting things, just doing different things to keep white masculinity in power. So Joseph, everything you're saying, you're absolutely correct. The thing that I want to make clear, I don't know where you went, babe. I know you're on it somewhere. I hope you can hear me.
I'm on here. Give me 1 second. It says that a host disabled it, but
I did not. I am sitting right here.
I was gonna say
the man is after us, Joe. That's what they try to. They don't want us to talk. They don't want us to kumbaya this. They don't want us to come together. So hold on, y'all. Let me see. I want to see if I can get Joe back because that was great. And just so y'all know, this is what it looks like to have a dignified conversation. Okay. Joe, where you go, man? Let me see if I can. I'm gonna make this other one a host. Okay, see if that makes any difference.
Oh yeah, wait, there we are.
Okay, there you go, bam. Okay, so what I'm pointing to is you're absolutely correct historically. You're not wrong. And I would love for people to not take our word for it, go look it up so you don't have to manipulate it, okay? But
please do.
Please do.
Please read. Please educate.
Well, it's educate, but also be informed so that when people have conversations, you don't feel, you can trust it. You can trust yourself. So, but what I want to add to what you're pointing to is when you say powers that be, what I'm going to call those powers to be is white supremacy. I'm calling that white masculinity. I'm calling that patriarchy. I'm calling that white rich men doing white rich men shit. Okay. And the biggest benefit of whiteness for poor white men was the notion that no matter how poor they were, no matter how low they were always better than the richest Black man. So that is a rhetoric that has been pushed out every time Black working class Blacks or free slaves and working class whites got together. They did it with King, Reconstruction, and it could simply be the same thing that's happening today. But what's most important in this conversation is when we look at something like the DC riots, okay? When we see something like that, and we see the way that, and I'm confident, and be clear, I'm a marketer. So you're absolutely correct about throwing gasoline on it to get people riled up. I'm clear about that. However, part of that includes that there's a germ of truth in it, okay, on both sides. I don't think it's one-sided, but I do think that when we look at how the police tend to people on the left protest compared to tending to protesters on the right, there is a different protocol. That is the thing that bothers me. And that's the thing that got me on the horn with January 6th. Trump's been saying what Trump's been saying for the last 4 years. I've become immune to that. What blew my brain apart was that when white bodies, and some brown ones, but majority white bodies that identify as Trump supporters, even if they were infiltrated, because we know Black Lives Matter was infiltrated with people who instigated. So it's not impossible.
Oh yeah, they got hijacked. They totally got hijacked. Black Lives Matter totally got hijacked.
Yeah.
And it got hijacked by liberal white people. For real.
Well, it was a mixture of liberal white, but the bottom line is it still was a hijacking that when the police are deployed, we don't get the same grace. That is my only point with the video that got me to you. It wasn't, I'm not doing far left or far right. I'm not doing Trump. I'm not doing fair. I'm doing like, damn, they don't get tear gassed. And I know some of them did. Okay. They don't get guns. I know some of them did. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not suggesting it's a pure conversation. That would be foolish. All right. But when I look at the level of cavalierness, Black Lives Matter couldn't even get to the fucking gate, let alone into the Capitol. And that is the thing that frustrated me was, how come when we do something, we get dead?
Well, I will bring this up though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I would say that in 1970, when the Black Panther Party took over the Capitol, guns a-blazing, that went over. Now, actually, I'm not going down that rabbit hole anyway, because you know what? Nobody is justified in violence towards somebody else to speak truth to power. That has nothing to do with. I mean, you could make claim that going into the Capitol was to approach the power, but one thing I will say, and this might be a touchy. This might. So I was reading the reports. I'm like, whose fault is that? Because I know cops, and I most cops I know, they're not racist. They're power trip. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. They are just assholes, and there's no two ways about it. It's a mentality. It's this, you want to talk about toxic masculinity. I think it's toxic, whatever it is, but these guys are going to be asshole if you're white or black. It's not because of you or your skin color. It's because of them and who they are as a person. And just because somebody puts on a police uniform doesn't mean that they're a good person, right? Yeah. So, but the controversial thing that I'll say is that when I was looking this up, first thing I asked myself when that happens is, whose job? I noticed there was a glaring police presence, underwhelming police presence, right? Whose job was that to ensure that? Now, the chief of police for the Capitol Police requested on multiple occasions support. What's come out, I think yesterday, is that the FBI knew about this the day before the Capitol. So this narrative that it was Trump's incitement of all this is a misnomer, because this was planned and they knew about it the day before. The police chief of the Capitol Police, his last name I think is Sund, S-U-N-D, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, he put calls in to request additional resources. He said there's going to be more people than that. We don't have enough manpower, basically. They were denied. Now, there's oversight within the House of Representatives. That's basically their boss. They would be the ones that authorize that. So those are the people above the chief in the hierarchy of the Capitol Police. Got it. Why would people in Congress underwhelm their own police force, who is supposed to be protecting them, when they knew all this was going to happen, the FBI had reports that people were talking about war and storming the Capitol prior to the event, and they still didn't give them additional resources. It's almost like they wanted it to happen. And I tell you now, it didn't benefit Trump or the Republicans. As a matter of fact, as you can see now, it was the exact opposite. Now, and part of what I see or how I look at things is, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm very grounded in, I need to be able to prove it or I'm not saying it. Or I at least need to be able to have enough evidence there to point to this. But there are a lot of things that just don't add up. And for the last year, 2 years, that just don't add up. Now, I've personally researched, I don't take the media's word for anything. I look at, because I started noticing this happen. You read a headline, and this is how stupid they think we are. You read a headline, and it's one thing. And then you go into the article, and the article doesn't support that headline whatsoever. I was like, well, what are you really doing here? You're trying to influence public opinion based off of a headline because you know that people have a 12-second attention span, and they're probably not going to read the article anyway. So this slowly happened. They slowly got more misleading. And one thing I will say is, and this is where I had it, is remember Charlottesville? Of course, Charlottesville.
Say more about
where Trump said, Trump's comment that was blasted all over the media was, there were good people on both sides, right? And yes. Remember that? All right. And the narrative was he was referring to Antifa and white nationalists. The real, it was the next paragraph when you're reading a transcript, because I read the transcripts of these things. It was the next paragraph. It wasn't necessarily the next sentence, but the next paragraph, he said, oh, and I'm not talking about the white supremacists and those guys. Those guys should be rejected completely, right? The spin, though, was that Trump has the white supremacists back. He didn't call him out. He refuses to call him out. And that went along up through these last debates where they said, oh, are you finally going to condemn white supremacy? And it was like, I say they as a figure of term because I don't know who it is or who's really behind the pull strings of who's writing these narratives. But they figured out a long time ago the best way to shut somebody up is call them a racist. And that term has been used to vilify people who otherwise aren't racist. I heard it with Amy Coney Barrett, the Supreme Court Justice. She was racist because she adopted children from Haiti. We're probably talking about the least racist person ever. That's still the narrative. And because it works, So as I watched this develop over years of just getting more and more asinine, to now the point where it's like, it doesn't even matter what the truth is. People are going to say whatever they want. The revisionist history of how things really are only determined by the people who are in control of things like the media.
I think that's fair. Okay, let me address a couple of things. Okay, I hear everything you're pointing to, and I get it. Let's go back to the police being the undermining or the
understaffing. Yep.
The understaffing for DC. Okay, and you were pointing to like, well, how come if the House of Representatives are over the chief of police for the Capitol Police, which is distinct from the DC police, two different things,
totally
right?
Different things.
Then why would they not take it seriously? Over here in my world, I'm aware of everything you're pointing to. At least I'm aware of it based on what I know, because I have read transcripts, and I will give you that. In my worldview, the reason why it wasn't taken seriously is because they are white. This is the distinction between how you and I hear the same information. Literally, we could be looking at the same TV show. And what I'm seeing is whether it came from the House of Representatives or from the rhetoric Trump had before January 1st, or whether or not it was his rally on January 6th. You see what I'm saying? The level of, how can I say it, grace and casual inclusiveness is my breakdown. That's the shit that fucks with me. And whether or not it's from the House or white liberals or anarchist, it still comes back to that when a white person says something or does something, they get a whole different kind of treatment. Now, to go back to the Black Panther Party, I'm cool with it. You are not wrong, okay? And everybody go read about it. Go read about Black Panthers in Capitol. It's all there, okay? I'm not suggesting anything is, I don't disagree with you, Joseph. I think the difference is the treatment. That is the only thing, and I have to keep saying that, Joseph, because a lot of times when people get into the conversation, they're building a case about fairness. I'm not doing fair. I'm saying that if I look at every historical moment when we've had these kinds of breakdowns in terms of social equality, Black people end up dead. And I don't mean like one or two, I mean like a fucking truckload dead, or in jail, or executed, or defamed. And then when we try to have the conversation, white people try to make it equal. And I keep saying, I'm not disagreeing with you. That's not my fight. I'm dealing with that when you do it, you get a fucking selfie, but when I do it, I get a fucking gun in my back or a knee on my neck. That is my fight. That's the only thing I'm ever contended with. I'm never really contended with why. And I don't really care whether it's a white liberal or white racist. I don't give a fuck whether Trump said it like, okay, I didn't really mean those people. I know the media spin shit, but I haven't had enough experiences with Trump's rhetoric to make me not trust him. So even let's say he said what you said. I think he probably did. And to be fair, given that he's so not socially, he's so socially awkward, he probably was trying to do some good shit and just don't know how to fuck to talk to people, all right? But by the time I got to this point, he had already exhausted my grace, so I don't trust him. He could even be doing good shit. But the way that he claims the work of other people, it makes me not trust him. So when I see something like January 6th, when he says out of his mouth, go to the wash, go get the vote, go save the, save the steel. And I'm like, dude, millions of people are listening to you that trust you. They're going to fucking go. That's the shit that fucks with me. I'm not finished. I see your mouth. I saw you, Joseph.
Nope. Did you see the second I doubled over real quick? I was like, nope, not yet.
Well, let's start praying in a minute. So I just really contend with, I'm clear. People say, well, in Black Lives Matter, they broke $1 billion of damage and they burned down this building and they killed these people. And I'm like, you're not accounting for provocation. It makes it sound like we just came outside and decided to burn some shit. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we just came outside and decided to say, fuck it, we just want to loot some shit. Not, okay, we just got dead and executed in front of the world. And if they could do it to George, they can do it to fucking to me. And they've already done it to Trayvon. They've already done it to Aubrey. They've already done it to Breonna. They've already done it to enough of us in rapid fucking succession that we're in a heightened state of awareness about how fragile our lives are. In terms of the police, I think you're right. I think a certain kind of person is pulled to be a cop. I have police people in my family, okay? I also got I got a couple of criminals. I'm not confident what side is the better. I love them all. They're still my people. My fucking people, man. Joe, I love my peoples. I love them, right? And it attracts people who are dreamers and also attracts people who are really, really egotistically designed to want to be respected. I'm okay with either one. I'm not tripping off of it. But now, because shit is heightened, now they're scared. And they're trigger fucking happy. And they get rewarded socially for killing Black bodies by becoming socially famous. So I have my own ideas about how that works. What I'm pointing to in terms of all of my rhetoric around this particular incident regarding January 6th, 2021, is that when I saw the noose, Joseph, hanging in the in the Capitol, okay? And then I see a picture of a white man taking a selfie with a cop. And I'm thinking about my people who've been lynched recently, not even slavery, just the babies. They say suicide in jails, or on campuses. I go through something every time I see it. I go through something every time I hear it. I physically have physical reactions. And it's not always anger. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's just that's despondent. Because what gets triggered is a historical trauma and an emotional wound that I cannot heal. Because each time I get grounded, some new shit happens. I'm afraid to look at the news because I don't know what the fuck I'm going to see. Now, I'm clear other people are going through this, and I'm clear that Black people are not the only ones who have trauma. I have some Jewish friends who are going through some shit. I got some Indian friends who are going through some shit. I got some white friends who are going through some shit, okay? So I'm not suggesting it's uniquely a Black experience. What I'm pointing to is because of the history of racism and white supremacy in the foundation of what it means to be American, each time I see another piece, I might as well be on a fucking auction block. It feels the same to me. And what I don't get from people I don't call allies is I don't see that they see what I'm saying. What I hear them saying is I'm playing victim. They're saying I'm making it about race. I'm like, I'm making it about my fucking life. And you can't hear that I'm talking about my life? You think I'm talking about my fucking skin color? I'm talking about being afraid to go the fuck outside because the police see me different than how they see you. That's what I'm trying to say. But I can't even get to that, Joe, because what they hear is like, oh, well, you're just playing a race card. I'm like, what other fucking card can I play? You ain't listen to nothing else? And you gonna tell me that my experience is not valid? You gonna tell me my feelings are not valid because I don't agree with you? And now I'm the bitch? Now I'm the ugly motherfucker. I'm the ugly ape. What you know what I'm saying? So that's the shit I'm dealing with. I'm not refuting fact. But what I'm asking for is if you want to roll with me, if you're trying to be down with me, if you hate me, then go away. I'm fine with that. I don't expect people to like me. It's not required. But if you say you with me, then be my friend when I need it. Don't try to white-splain me about how I'm misunderstanding the left from the right. I can't hear that right now because I'm just trying to calm my fucking blood pressure. So that's what I was trying to say in the video. It's completely imperfect, okay? It was early. I didn't get all the information right. I'm fine with that, but the emotion is still the same. Don't say you for me. Don't say you want a world that works, but you don't let it, unless I do it in a very neat, organized, calm way, you're gonna discredit my word. You're gonna discredit my experience, but you want us to be in a world that works. How can it work when it doesn't work for me? That's the thing I'm dealing with. So when you reached out, you said I'm rational. Sometimes, you know what I'm saying? But most times,
I know you got a little crazy in there. I know you got a lot of crazy in there, actually. But that's what I like about you.
And I love my crazy. That's what makes me. I have a right for my crazy, Joseph. So that's what I wanted to have you here. And again, I don't disagree with your logic. I think even our approaches are different. Your approach is much more systematic. Mine is extraordinarily experiential. Those are two different approaches to the same thing, but that doesn't make either one of them invalid. I don't disagree with you at all. I think you're right. I think that what I'm seeking is that we say we want the world to work, but we want it to work the right way. You see what I'm saying? You got to fit into this neatness, and I'm not neat. I'm not going to be neat, but I will always tell you the truth. And if there's no room for my truth without it being discounted because I don't have my facts in order, then there's no room for me to actually even talk it through with you so you can hear my perspective. That is my point. You can speak now. You can have the mic back.
By the fact that anybody that knows me, for the most part, despite how I look, I don't give a fuck what race you are, to be honest with you. I don't care. I don't care. I call out anybody, and you know what? The people that really know me, like I told you before, use a thorough ass white ball is what I used to hear, right? I don't have it in my heart to hate somebody for how they look. I don't have it in my heart to hate anybody, period. But particularly for something as immaterial as how the sun affects you, because I'll tell you now, I turn red. I go through changes. Like, somebody judge me because I'm red. Like, come on. With that said, and you know there's always some shit coming when somebody says that. What I am concerned with, or what I see from, again, my perspective, which doesn't have the same kind of emotional draw to it that yours does, is that people know how sensitive it is. how sensitive a topic it is.
Mm-hmm.
When I mean people, I mean like media and anyone who's trying to garner support or get some back or whatever else. They know how sensitive that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this because my wife and I were having this conversation. Her sister's a cop, and you know, when she goes to pull somebody over, she said, you know, oh, it's because I'm black. She's like, no, I didn't even see what color you were when you blew the stop sign. That's why I pulled you over, though. It's like, just because something happens doesn't mean race is the motivator.
Okay.
But what I will say is that every time something happens, the media makes that the motivator. And what that does is pulls us further from where we should be getting to.
Mm-hmm.
We got to give ourselves a little credit. I go to work. Like I said, I work in sales. I go to somebody's office, and the person I'm meeting with is some black dude in a suit named Jamal, who probably makes $300,000 a year and has this baller ass office up in Center City, Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
The world that I hear portrayed versus that reality don't match. We got to give ourselves some credit of where people, me and you, people like me and you, just where we are as a society, where that's, if I read certain things from MSNBC or CNN, you wouldn't think that's possible for two reasons. One, his name's Jamal, and two, because of the color of his skin.
Mm-hmm.
So people in the know, people are trying to make something there, turn it into a race thing, know that that's the emotional response. And ultimately, I mean, if you're thinking about it, clicks and watching, think about coronavirus. They love coronavirus because coronavirus keeps you plugged into the news constantly. That's all anybody wants to know, what's happening with coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, when there's, out of this little sensationalizing, when you hit a low point, there has to be something to kick it up. Do I think that all of the police killing unarmed black people was racially motivated? No, I don't. I don't think so at all. I think the intolerance of some had stuff to do with some. I don't think that's the norm at this point. I think that's the exception. I'm not discounting that whatsoever. I know it exists. I just don't think that's the prevailing thought. Racism is not the prevailing thought at this point. And that's something to celebrate, to be honest with you. That's a good thing. All the history of our country, I don't know that there's many times in this country that we could say things like that. But a bigger point is where do we go from here? What are the solutions? One thing I did respect about Trump, and I thought this was going to get some credit, and I don't even think anybody knew about it. He sat down and look, listen, I'm not a Trump apologist. I'll tell you right now, I like his policies. I could care less for the man. Couldn't care less for him. I think he was needed, that kind of egotistical maniac was needed to stand up to show just how corrupt our government was, because anybody else would have folded. So I'm thankful in that sense, because I swear I have a much better idea of what our government really is about now than I did 4 years ago. But what he did was he sat down with black, we call them community leaders, basically ministers, a lot of ministers. I got to be honest, I can't name the city they were from, the town they were from, or whatever, but sat down and said, what would help? What would help the black community? And he said, education, school choice, because our kids are in these cities that are so horribly run, and our schools are a joke, and they are. I can speak to Philly schools. I can't speak to anybody else, but Philly schools are horrible. They're no place for anybody to get an education that's actually worthy of something. Economic development, and I think it's basically that was the gist of it. That came in two ways: school choice, the funding of the HBCUs, which is no thing in of itself, but it was more of the gesture. And the thing that I question myself is, why didn't that happen before? So that's where I was at with that one. And like economic development zones within, it's basically the black community. I mean, black communities, right? Those were solutions. What I feel like is there's more of this intention to talk about where things were, and tell people, you know, here's, and I could be wrong on this. If people tell your kids, if you're talking to your next generation down, you're like, look, you know, there's this invisible force of racism out there that is going to beat you down. You're never going to get anywhere because it's always going to tear you down. I don't think that's a motivator. I don't think that's going to get anybody up and say, you know what, I'm going to fight it back. There's a lot of people that do. They call it getting out of the hood, right? And that's everybody. I'm getting out. And those are the people that get motivated by stuff like that. But for the most part, people aren't motivated by hearing that they're going to fail because, you know, there's this white lash against you, essentially, right? So I'm a solutions oriented person. So how do we improve this? We got to talk to each other, but like in reality, what are the solutions?
I think that that's a great question. Let's look. I think that in terms of solutions, let's talk about talking. What has helped me? I'm gonna speak from personal experience because that's at least I can back that up. Is I used to be on the streets. I was a person who lived on the streets. I used to eat out of trash cans, sleep and piss and beer. And I've never had any person tell me that white people were holding me down. So when you're saying that, I don't know any Black person who has ever had the experience of saying there's this invisible force called whiteness that won't ever let you get out.
Racism, just to clarify. Yeah, radio.
And that's a fair call. Even racism, I've never had that spoken to me or around me. So I just want to make sure that it's not a cultural conversation as a whitey is trying to hold you down. Now, I do recall there was some rhetoric around that in the 70s around the white man, and I think that's part of a historical moment. What I have had to live through as a Black person who came up poor and in a very, very, very negative environment was, what are the ways for me to actually stay alive? And for me, it was education. Okay, that was my way of getting out of the ghetto and getting off the streets, and also the military. Okay, I joined the Coast Guard because it helped me. I wasn't good at it. Okay, but I did join it, and it gave me structure when I needed it the most when I was the youngest. Right. In terms of change, I think by virtue of us having the conversations, we can actually dispel some of the overall myths that have us make assumptions like, okay, well, Black people have this invisible force called racism that they think is holding them down. That's not it. It's more like this. When I was going to school, and I spent 14 years in school, I have a second master's and a Ph.D. from Stanford. So I spent a lot of fucking time in school, all right? And I went to school poor. So it wasn't like I went to school with anything, but charisma, right? And I had to contend with how much wasn't oriented around me. Meaning, I went into white classes with white students and white teachers who didn't know what to do with me. Meaning, they were all about what they knew, and my point of reference as poor, point of reference as Black, point of reference as street, right? All my point of references had nothing to do with what they already knew about. So I had to find and make my own way inside of those worlds, all right? And that in itself is a different kind of energy, right? So my bachelor's degree, my first degree is in performance. And there was this, when you learn how to be a performer, you learn different dialects. Well, all the dialects, Joe, they wanted to teach me were white ones. And I would never get cast in those roles, right? So I'm like, well, damn, what am I supposed to learn? So I had to go find Caribbean, West Indian, different kinds of dialects that my white counterparts didn't have to go find. That's not inherently bad. It's just more work. So when at least when I talk about racism, I'm not talking about, a snotty whiplash, rolling his mustache. Oh, I gotta get white people. I don't know. Fuck. That is not even remotely what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with privilege and right. But it's got to be like way out here, right?
Yeah, you got to have it down here. Yeah,
it has to be way out here. So I don't think that it's a matter of Black people saying, "Oh, white people are hiding behind corners trying to get me." No, I'm saying that white privilege and systemic racism makes it invisible that what I have to do to get through this motherfucker, you don't have to do, because you already have structures in place. So if I'm talking about it, I'm not suggesting that you're laying in the wait to pounce. I'm saying I gotta do all kinds of extra shit just to get through this motherfucker. So that's the first piece. Second piece is in terms of having to, how to move forward. You move forward by listening. Honestly, Joseph, I don't think it's that fancy. I think if you can just take the space to listen to get an understanding and stay in the conversation till you can hear it. I finally heard what you were saying. It took me about 30 minutes, but you were pointing to, at least is what my mind heard, was there are power structures in place that are designed to keep us apart. And that is what the fuck you're saying. Fundamentally, if we just took away all the words, like, that's it. I am not in that conversation.
That's simple.
I'm making it simple so I can track it, okay? And my people can track it. I'm not worried about that. I really am in a different conversation. I already know there's power structures that keep shit in place, that keep us from actually combining, coming together and working together. That is my lived experience. I know that. You're absolutely correct. And what I am saying that you may not be able to hear yet, and preferably we'll talk again after this time, right? But those, me too. But what those things that keep us apart are white. That is what I'm saying. And I'm not talking about white skin color, because I don't think white is skin. I think it's position. If Obama had done half the shit that Trump said, if they're starting with grabbing with the pussy, just starting there, he wouldn't have made it through. He wouldn't have got elected. I'm not even talking about politics. I'm just talking about permission and grace around the level of freedom with no punitive consequence. So again, I think that you and I, and Joseph, thank you for being willing. Don't ever forget that. Thank you for being willing to have the conversation, to have it be dignified, to speak your truth, and to do it in a way that isn't inflammatory. I think you're right about the media. I understand about clickbait. I teach my people about it all the time, which is why I have them go read. I would love for you to send me the articles that you are talking about with regard to HBCs, because I know Obama started that before Trump came in, and I know he renewed it. But we never hear about that part. We never hear about, okay, this is some shit Obama started, but Trump takes credit for it. Now, to be fair, if something's renewed, I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Abba. Okay. Thank you very much. I got the mic. Okay. So
good.
And so I would appreciate from you, because you're reading different things than I'm reading. Do you see what I'm saying? Honestly, we're reading different things. I would like for you to send me, so I can post to my people, the articles around Trump meeting with the Black church and what came out of it, because I can't find it. Do you understand? When I look for it, I hear people he talks about all the shit he did for historically Black colleges. Not one historically Black college has done an article about it. Because I look for them, because I know them. I trust them. I'm like, where the fuck is the articles that point to that he did that? So that's what I'm trying to. So you can hook me up, so I can, and I'll look it up, and I'll have my team look up some shit. But we haven't been able to find it, and he's been saying this all along. But I can't find the evidence for it, so I can't even contend with it. But if you got it, send it, because I'm genuinely interested to see. And to be fair, Joseph, he probably did some shit, but we can't get to it because every time he does something good, he says something that I couldn't even get past to go look at if he did something good. Okay, you can talk, and we're down to our last. Oh, we did good, Joseph.
Oh yeah, 33, not bad. No,
yeah,
Alex, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say we're 3 minutes over.
It's okay. It's fine. We got a little cushion.
So yeah, one thing I'll tell you is first, I'm no Trump apologizer. That's not what I'm here for, and that wasn't the intent. My intent in pointing a lot of this stuff out is to illustrate the way the media, how things are, what's amplified, what's not, right? We have a tendency not to amplify the good and to ultra amplify the bad, right? Clear. And that's just the sensationalization you're talking about. We can get a much longer talk about where I've been, where I came from, my experience, because to be honest with you, most of my formative years, I was raised by all Black guys. That's where a lot of my where I came from.
I can tell.
And that's not the town I grew up in. That's
no,
not
I
the
don't
town
care.
I grew up in.
I can tell.
My graduating class had two. But that's a lot of where my my mindset, my understanding of of people comes from, is by talking to people, by being with people. I just wanted to clarify something. I wasn't saying that people aren't living up because there's this racism. I'm not saying that that's the conversation that's being had and that nobody's going to get anywhere. I'm saying that that's not, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, that is not the prevailing thought amongst the white community.
Okay. That's fair.
That is at this point, and you couldn't always say that in any time in history. You couldn't say that, I don't think. Actually, although before 1500, I haven't been able to find any racism. So I don't know what happened in 1500 or so. You know what I mean? But at this point, I was going to say, at this point, I think that is by far the exception and not the rule. And it's only through continued dialogue and honestly joining hands and saying, all right, what are your problems? What are my problems? All right, let's figure them out. Let's figure out whether that's a political solution, whether that's an economic solution, whether that is a social thing. It seems to me that there is less action towards solving problems than there is talking about it. Trying to live and relive and again, I'm not making apologies for everything. Bad shit happens. There's bad people. There's honestly some of the most racist shit I ever heard in my life was a black person to me. All right. So, I mean, there's plenty of hatred to go around. All right. I'm not apologizing for any of them. I think it's disgusting, personally. And ultimately, in all of this, we have to come to solutions. I don't think our current power structure is set up to provide those solutions. I don't think that it's in anybody's interest, except ours, the people, interest in solving those problems. And that's really what needs to change. I honestly think, and I've never been really, really political until the last couple of years. And at this point, my first instinct is to go straight to the hood and say, are y'all happy? Do you think there's better? There can be better? Let's go get this thing. Because I think that the people like me with, five little girls, and I'm barely going to eke out of every year with the amount of money I need to get by, that's a shared experience among all cultures. There are things that can make our lives better. And it's never going to happen if it's portrayed that you have your life and I have mine. We have a shared existence that we got to first be able to identify the problem. And then from that, formulate a solution to it. Now, you can't really legislate out hate. You can't fix hate. You can expel it. You can make it not socially acceptable. I think that's where we've gotten. So that's a plus overall. And there's certainly nothing that can make up for 200 years of shit. And even before that, I just don't. I don't know. I don't think that not having any of these conversations and everybody going in, and I'm sorry, I keep looking over to the comments and just saying it's like it's nothing but more shit. And it's like we wouldn't be having this conversation if
don't look at the comments.
But that's the prevailing thought. I understand, but that's the prevailing thought. What's up there is the prevailing thought. What's right here is what matters.
Well, that's what you had said. What got me on the call with you was like, how can we work together? And this is it. And the people who are doing what they're doing, you said it earlier, you cannot hate is going to be doing what it do. But there'll be other people who will listen to this conversation, Joe, that may not even be there now. You understand? They'll look at it later there'll be comments, I promise you I'm going to get a shit ton of emails, right? That will have this be useful. So I'm not looking at the comments, going to be present with you. And I'm confident that my tribe, they'll take care of that. That'll be fine. But what's most salient is that we're talking.
Sure.
Okay. And while it may not feel like it's change, honestly, it may just feel like a conversation. It is a change. It actually makes a difference for other people to see that it can be done. Okay. Now we won't open the floor up because people are still hot, but there'll be people who will look. I'm going to leave it up. People will look at it later. And what I want to say to you as we wrap up is that I respect you. I appreciate you. I thank God for you. I love that you have 5 baby girls. I love that you got girls. I love that you have baby girls. Okay. And they get to be raised by you as a dad. Okay. I don't agree with everything you're saying. I don't have to, but I can understand where you're coming from. And given my level of influence, that's a good thing. Okay. So I want to thank you for helping me expand. It matters to me that you heard me out. It may not be a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to me. It's a big deal to me that you reached out to me. It's a big deal that you reached out to me twice. It's a big deal that you gave me your phone number. It's a big deal that you were willing to have a conversation to set the tone. It's a big deal to me that you would make time after you had to go and do you were doing a strike, school strike, protesting against, so your kid can have, your girls can have school. That's the caliber of who you are. And whether or not I agree with your thought process is irrelevant. Your character matters more to me than your politic. So they can hate all they want, but I have a new ally that I didn't have before. And my prayer for everyone who listens and who watches later is that they develop the capacity to stay in the conversation until they get an understanding. And it does take a focus because the news is aberrant. It only publishes shit that's fucked up. That's the nature of the news. So we can't really look to that. But I'm doing conversations on Clubhouse. We do what we can. And I do believe that by each conversation moves the human race forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. So any parting words before we wrap up, Mr. Joseph, Mr. Joey J?
I thought it was amazing. Just last night, I set up a page on here, Real Talk with Joey J. I had no idea what direction it was going to go. I swear I had no idea. I messaged you. I already forgot about it. When I saw you, my wife was standing in front of me and I was smiling ear to ear. I couldn't believe when you responded. And it clicked immediately. And it's like, that's what Real Talk is. It's going to be having harder conversations. Let's have the conversations that nobody else wants to have.
You're perfect for that. You need a podcast, man. Okay, Joey J. So I want to thank you. And
thank you.
You're good. You got everything you need to say. All hearts and minds are clear.
Yeah, absolutely. There was coming into this, I had no idea. My wife said, "What are you going to talk about?" I said, "I have no idea. Let's go with the flow. Let's just talk. Real talk." Real talk.
Joey.
And everything you said, ditto. I appreciate you, and definitely respect for you. Utmost.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully
and for
we can do
all
this.
Listeners, what'd you say, Joey?
Oh, hopefully we can do this again.
Hopefully we can. Well, no, let's get past this one first. Breathe. You can see what the world's saying over there, because me and you are good. We're having a love fest. They could be over there bombing each other. We'll figure it out. But I want to say to all of my listeners and all of my truth tellers, thank you for being with us in the conversation. And for all of my haters, thank you for listening in, because clearly you needed to be here. So prayerfully, some of it made a difference, and it's okay if it didn't. I trust God with it. And I want to say thank you to God for loving me enough to give me a platform to have conversations that we don't normally have. All right. So with that being said, everybody, know that you love beyond all measure, my sweet sister in success, and the brothers who love us, and our allies, new and old. This is Dr. Venus, your hot mess millionaire, and I love you. Please remember this: you are worth so much more than you have ever been taught to believe. I love you, and goodbye for now. Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks.